And we have to remember brand is more than just a color palette. It is really everything. It's every touch point your client or candidate has with your business. And that includes stuff like accounts and aftercare and how they land on your website and how the person on the phone answers the phone and how that aligns with what they're seeing online. You know, that brand really is that full of what your business is. Yeah, there's a statistic out there right now that only 1% of the LinkedIn community actually creates their own content. I think our recruitment industry probably bucks that trend quite significantly, but that still tells you that there's a lot of silent scrollers out there that are just scrolling and consuming.
Welcome to another episode of The Staffing Ring. I'm your host, Jason Lawson, and today I'm joined by Kristie Perrotte. Welcome, Kristie.
Hello, thanks for having me, Jason.
Yeah, really excited to have our chat today. Founder and chief thriver at Thrive Recruitment Marketing. And given your wealth of experience in recruitment, really keen to dive in. Before we do that, tell us a bit about your position, your business, and your background.
Indeed. Well, August hit 20 years that I've been in the industry, which is a scary prospect, albeit I am excited for this year ahead. So let's make it to the next 20. But I've been doing the recruitment marketing game for a long time, 20 years exactly. And other than a brief stint that I had to cover a desk one summer when everybody was on mat leave, I've always been on the marketing side and rising the ranks and ultimately getting to a position that, really sitting shoulder to shoulder with the operational and sales leadership and recognizing making marketing accountable and data-driven and, relevant to actually, deserve that spot at that decision-making table. So Thrive, we started up 6 years ago, or I started it, and we're now a thriving team, pardon the pun. But it really is to emulate that small team, or an in-house team rather, offering across all the different channels and specialisms, but most critically aligned to business and sales strategy, measurable, ROI driven, and ultimately a contributor to that revenue and business growth.
Brilliant. I love the Thrive mindset and mentality and just ethos of your business and talking before we were recording here about going from surviving to thriving, both as individual recruiters and as businesses. So let's kick off, and I think that's certainly a good way to kind of start the conversation. Is
fantastic.
A lot of agencies have been surviving, and many have done well in that phase of economic uncertainty. So 2025, I think there's a lot of buzz around reviving, thriving. What are you seeing as some of the key kind of dynamics and maybe still a few hurdles or ways of working that agencies can really think about marketing and sort of putting themselves out there more?
Yeah. I think last year, it was a tough year for most, not for everyone, but for most. And I think that what you called it surviving, that survival mode, I think a lot of businesses went into what they knew. They knew was, okay, cost cutting, buckle down, get the consultants doing more activity. There's a bit of a mismatch there because a lot of the consultants, I don't want to date myself, but I already have with my 20 years experience, but a lot do not share that same kind of sales rigor process that the generation before. And oftentimes the recruitment leaders of those businesses came from. So there is already a mismatch there. We're wanting our consultants to be hitting the phones more, and they were trying to kind of irk this out of them last year. Whereas that's not the style. That's not the way that, dare I say, younger generations are doing things. So it was this year of survival, of trying these different things, or almost kind of retreating back to cost savings to protect the business. But out of that, there were the visionaries, there were the innovators, or there were the ones who were starting to realize, what? And actually, let me digress for 1 second. the talk, the chatter in the industry, automation, AI, both good and bad. But suddenly there was this awareness, and not just in the industry, in the wider economy, of course, and the market and the world. And suddenly you had these people who might have been holding on to those old ways of working to suddenly say, okay, wait a second, how can I do this smarter? How can I do this better? And I think as we come into this year, automation, AI maybe is a bit newer, but automation, we're right at the crest of that bell curve right now. This is we're past the early adopters. We are now in the norm. So the ones that are the laggards right now, I'd be a little bit concerned if I were them. Yes, the market can improve, and yes, they can, continue on once it does. But if you actually want to be taking market share and wanting to be, riding that crest, you need to probably be doing things a little bit differently.
And you touch on a pretty common theme there in terms of that business development muscle, which a lot of recruiters early in their career hit 2021, 2023 when times were so good, there wasn't a lot of need. And so, that's certainly something I think we're all seeing in terms of focus and how do we build that in our agency. How does business development and marketing kind of fit together when you're working with clients?
Oh, hand in hand, Jason. And these it should be. I think, and unfortunately, I think there is still this silo. There's this silo when I think the two parties don't understand each other, and that could be a lack of awareness or lack of technical understanding. But more often than not, it's just lack of communication. Oftentimes the marketer hasn't been informed of the business goals. They do not know the business strategy, and how giving them an opportunity to share how marketing can be a contributor to it, or that business development sales function. You don't expect them to be perfect technical marketers, but you expect them to have a certain amount of curiosity, or at least the leadership to have a certain amount of curiosity, a certain amount of what's we're looking for, recognition that they don't know everything. They are fabulous at what they do, but marketing has come on leaps and bounds, automation and AI just being one piece of it. But just that digital revolution we've seen in the last 10 years, data-driven metrics, ROI, a lot of them say it's a dark art. They say, oh, you can't measure marketing. Well, you absolutely can. So just that curiosity. And those two parties, if you get that both right with a shared curiosity, they could come together and create something really quite powerful.
I think that's going to become even more important with AI and automation just becoming more and more a part of the business, because it's going to be about brands, it's going to be about people. And so having a joined up experience from whether it be a client point of view or a candidate point of view, I think that is where I see, marketing being, more and more important and valuable for agencies. How does brand kind of sit with you in terms of agencies and their sort of overall go-to-market?
Yeah, well, brand is foundation. You can have all the bells and whistles of automation of digital marketing, but if you don't have substance to deliver on it, you're going to fall flat. So, and I've seen brand really come into its own. And we have to remember brand is more than just a color palette and a logo. Brand is really everything. It's every touch point your client or candidate has with your business. And that includes stuff like accounts and aftercare and how they land on your website and how the person on the phone answers the phone and how that aligns with what they're seeing online. That brand really is that full brand of what your business is. It is the experience your customer has. So as we've seen this last year, again, that the innovators of this last year, they've been, looking at their service offerings. There's been a lot of businesses, parlaying into embedded or RPO models or productizing, particularly around the executive search space. So as you're actually creating these different, let's call them products for your business or different service offerings, brand needs to accompany it. You need to now start articulating what makes your business different. How do you articulate those services or products that you're developing? And how do you make sure that they not only align to that customer pain point, but that you have you have proof that you can achieve it. So whether that's in case studies or statistics or, testimonials, that gives that customer confidence to go from being in your funnel to converting through the funnel.
Right. And how do you see the difference of an agency that when you describe that, whether it be as a pitch or when you're working with them, and they get it, right? They're nodding, they understand it, they understand the potential and the opportunity, versus an agency that, they may be quote unquote old school, they just want to do it, with, phones and general outreach. What are you seeing as the different kind of characteristics of those agencies?
I mean, I love working with a leader who understands that they don't know everything, because that's actually the most powerful thing. That person who understands that they're, what is it? Known unknowns. They know there are known unknowns. They know they don't know everything. And they know that to scale a business and to be a successful business, scaling or otherwise, that they need to encircle themselves with other experts, whether that's other experts on their team internally, you'd expect so, whether that is their, their finance resource, their marketing resource, their HR resource, whatever it might be. They know that they just have to be the one orchestrating all the different pieces. And that's when you really, those are the relationships we love the best. The ones that, we can equally learn from them. We can understand the strategy they want for their business from a growth strategy. And then we can, they can entrust us to get to use our guidance to encircle that, to envelop it, to support it and enable it to achieve its full potential. And yeah, we have several clients that fit that bill, and they're a joy to work with. It's why we love doing what we do.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful kind of description of any role or any type of position in a company. It is really understanding what are your strengths and where are the gaps that you need, either internal or external, help and support. Just turning, looking forward now in terms of 2025. There is a lot of hope and expectation of growth in the market. What are some perhaps unconventional or maybe tactics that perhaps agencies haven't really deployed in the past kind of surviving period, where now looking to how they can really approach the market, maybe attack the market in a different way, whether it be their positioning, their messaging, or their overall marketing?
Yeah, well, I might even reference that there was Reed was on, and I don't want to get into a debate right now, but back in December, there was a reference saying, oh, well, our job numbers have been down on the website, so it must mean disaster for the industry. And the number of people who commented on this, it really kind of erupted, at least my LinkedIn.
I saw it, yeah.
On saying, no, that is completely misguided. It's the fact that people are doing things differently. They're not going to a job board. So is that actually a fair barometer? I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, if I'm really honest. But what that tells me, and what, it's the drum I've been banging for far too many years, but there is this excitement, dare I call it, about data and about going back to their database. And it's not a new school method. I was actually reflecting over the recent period about, what did you do 20 years ago when I started my career? And there was some very classified job ads and magazines and radio, very different from today. But one thing that I think was a real positive was that CRM was everything to you. It didn't have the shiny bells and whistles. It didn't have the search function that it had today, but people used it because LinkedIn did exist, but it was in its infancy. The CRM was everything. Now, fast forward and think about the amount I'm talking to a recruitment leader here, the amount you've spent on job boards, on LinkedIn recruiter licenses, on recruiter salaries, and just, the time they spent sourcing and ultimately curating this database. And there's some interesting stats out there. Bullhorn has one that 80% of the 80% of the placements that recruitment agencies are making if they get them from an external job board, they already exist in the database. And I have firsthand experience doing that exercise with several agencies, and it is about the same, 75 to 85%. So the new kid on the block, which is not so new, is going back to database more and seeing how can we, all these other tools are expensive. They're not helping you stand out from the crowd. Let's go back to the brand. How is your brand any different from anybody else? If you're just sourcing on LinkedIn or sourcing on job boards, it's going back to the database. However, the excitement comes from a place of recognizing that there are now tools to augment that data that actually makes it useful and actually makes it worthwhile and actually makes it feasible to actually do all these kind of advanced and it's often automation or advanced database marketing programs because they've been able to get their data in check. And it's not this overwhelming or impossible task to do so.
I'd love to dive deeper into that, Kristie, in terms of the data, which is without doubt a big asset, alongside the tools, automation, AI, and then the marketing. Because maybe just for some of the listeners and me, I think it's how to think about those three things together. And the data, the tools, and the marketing, and I guess taking the balance of at scale versus personalization, and how to kind of think about that with that BD, that marketing. How does it all fit together?
There. Right. Okay. Where do you start with that one? So the very first thing is looking at your database. What is the possible now? Because so many people, leaders, they'll say, okay, well, our data is just a mess. So we can't do anything for 6 or 12 months until we fix it. And that's 6 or 12 months of opportunity cost, which is pretty significant. So the opportunity here, and here's a shameless plug, but we actually offer a CRM audit that looks at all the different data points, the completion of them for candidate client records, and seeing, what's the art of the possible today. And part of that is not just, the obvious is, do they have an email address? That's your low-hanging fruit. Do they have an email address, and is it at least segmented that it's candidate or client? How old are the records? What can you feel confident in communicating to someone that it will land correctly? But from there, it becomes stuff like, again, how old is the record? How complete is it? If I talk about on the client side, what are some of the hyper segmentation we could get into? And we're not just talking about sending an email and getting the first name right. And we're not just talking about the company size or the geography, etc. Hyper segmentation now talks about what are some of the nuances that you can confidently write an email or other marketing tool or pick up the phone and know that you're hitting a pain point for them. So, for example, maybe you have information like, have they recently undertaken investment? Are they in the process of an M&A? Are they hiring? Are they in industry like energy or engineering that's recently had, or clean energy that's had an influx of investment? What are these kind of micro points that if you can start segmenting to this, you can write a message or you can market to them, whichever channel we're talking about. You can market to them with a message that is tuned into a much more sophisticated message than,
Right.
are you hiring? Do you need some temps? Which again, the Reflective brand is never going to differentiate you from the others. I'll pause there for a second because there's a lot more steps.
Yes. Yeah.
The first thing, what's the low-hanging fruit and what are the segmentation opportunities today that allow you to get moving? And that's probably, do they have an email address? Are they tagged for candidate versus client? How old are they as a record? Because obviously, I don't know about you, but I still get emails oh, here's a hot job that'd be perfect for you. That's from something I applied for 12 years ago. It doesn't really hit the mark. What can you confidently use today? Segment that out. Then work on your data cleanse and getting the rest of your data in check. And there's tools to do this to be able to have your medium and long-term vision and plan.
The segmentation that resonates highly in terms of really being able to understand the performance you're getting from your marketing, your outreach, because client segments or candidate types are going to have different response rates, different activation rates. So rather than having a number, you then now have a selection of numbers for each cohort. And I think that's going to really help kind of think about, okay, how do we, well, is our brand, as our positioning and messaging resonating a lot better for one group, right? And that could it could indicate a way to actually grow the business, because now you're thinking, well, whether it be oil and gas or light industrial or healthcare, your brand, your messaging is, resonating. Can that be a signal to grow further into that segment?
Exactly. One of the things that I really hope we can leave behind us is, we'll be talking to an agency and we say, okay, what's your niche? Oh, well, we do finance and accounting. Okay, you do finance and accounting. What's your geography? Well, everywhere in the world. And they're like, oh gosh, or you get the ones that say, oh, well, we're going into the US. Okay, fantastic. Where in the US? Oh, well, the whole US. You do read, and I'm going to just put it out there. I'm Canadian, just so everybody can. I know you'll hear this accent that I have, and I'm not make any calls on this, but I do know enough about that market to say that it is 50 states, like 50 countries. It's
Right.
not enough that you're going after the whole lot of it. And this is segmentation 1.0. This should be the basics. What is our ideal customer profile, including geography, company size, company type, potentially. Finance and accounting is a great example. Because it spans sector, go after the sectors that are doing well. Don't go after the sectors that aren't doing well. So, it shows you how you need to be. Every agency and every business is unique. Every strategy is unique. But that same kind of overarching ideal that you need to be focused on that ICP and get laser focused reigns true no matter the agency that we're talking to.
Yes, yeah, it's such an important point in terms of, let's look at 2025. All right, success means X revenue at the end of the year. So let's play that back. Okay, how many placements does it equal? Okay, let's look at our conversion ratios from outreach to placements. Therefore, what's the minimum viable market that needs to serve to produce those results? It might not be the whole of the US. It might not be all of finance and accounting. So I think it's really being laser focused on what is needed for success.
Yeah, and it's switching your mantra from being kind of reactive and waiting for the business to come to you to being proactive and going after it. And I think, going back to that point you made about how does business development and marketing, how do they align on this? I mean, marketing has to have that level of focus. Otherwise, if you're doing any kind of paid campaigns, or even if you're purchasing data, etc., if you don't know, using the US as an example, 300 million people potentially. If you don't have at least some ways to narrow that down, to focus your messages, your spend, your data acquisition, well, you're either going to burn through a lot of money to try to acquire it, which, it's impossible amounts of money if we're talking about to acquire that. Or you can sit down with business development and marketing and come up with a plan and you go after it.
Just taking a step back and thinking about where does marketing fit in terms of, you've got the strategy, tactics, and execution of the business. And I'm sure you're going into a lot of agencies who are already up and running with, a decent sized business, many recruiters. They've already got some marketing activities going on. If I'm thinking about bringing in Thrive into my agency, how should I be thinking about it? Where do I start? Do I, think about the tactics and what's working today, or do we take a step back and think about the wider picture?
Yeah. Well, I think, unfortunately, they don't know where to start because they don't have a baseline, because they're not measuring their marketing. And this is probably 95% of the businesses we encounter, if I'm completely honest, or they don't know how to measure or what to measure. And it's a combination of a few things. It's a combination of, that the world is moving quickly and digital marketing has come, with this kind of tidal wave. It's not new, but the tidal wave is still going, fueled by automation and AI in the background. It's the fact that they might have had marketers who have traditionally been brand marketers, or have been maybe pushed in a direction of doing more kind of social media marketing because that's what recruiters know, LinkedIn, etc. And oftentimes it's businesses that are hiring very junior marketers, which for whatever reason, cost or otherwise, but they may not have the tools or even the wherewithal to know what we need to be measuring in order to get that baseline. So the first step is we have to do an audit. We have to do an audit of the technical marketing. We have to do an audit of so the data, your LinkedIn metrics, your website metrics, your visitors, your conversions. Where are they coming from? What's converting best? Or what channel? Google, LinkedIn, job
Page, SEO, yes.
are converting best.
Yeah.
Second stage is let's start looking at, let's look at the website. Can somebody, actually get to where they need to go? I'm doing this because I want my user experience. If I'm a client landing on the site, how do I get to where I want to go? If I'm a candidate landing on a job page on a site, are you making me go through, if I press apply, are you making me go through pages and pages and pages of application form? And therefore we get an abandoned cart kind of scenario that off they go. So how do we make sure that the technical, what we've set up as our business marketing, is it fit for purpose as it is? And oftentimes it doesn't actually have to be massive tweaks here to see some really big gains from the offset.
And that goes back to understanding the buyer journey, whether it be a client or candidate who's buying into that role, and really understanding, put yourself in their shoes. How does that experience fit or suit the experience that you're wanting to give? And I think that certainly, from years gone by of applying for roles, I've certainly been in that abandoned cart cohort where you've uploaded your LinkedIn profile, your CV, and then you've still got 10 pages of question after question. And also from a hiring manager point of view, there is light and day between agencies I've worked with, and myself being a hiring manager, who have been stellar, just with the whole communication and experience. So I think, that certainly speaks volumes.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's an attitude that, a candidate can be a client can be a candidate. And of course they can, but they will have an intent when they are landing on your site or engaging with your content or clicking on an ad. There will be a clear intent. And so that journey from that intent needs to stay clean, let's say. So if a candidate has landed on your website and landed on pages that are obviously candidate driven messaging pages, you don't want to start interrupting that with a client message. It has to be really clean, get into where they want to go as quickly and seamlessly as you can.
100%. Okay, as we wrap up, a few sort of closing questions and thoughts. Again, looking at the year ahead, Kristie, like what are some of the most exciting kind of developments or perhaps marketplace partners, whether it be marketing automation or CRM? What's really exciting you about the next kind of 6 or 12 months ahead?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that data piece. The data tools out there are incredible. And really, if you get all the pieces working together, so there are some tools that I'm not going to get them at this moment naming names, but
Sure.
There are some tools out there that literally will bolt onto your CRM and constantly be updating the records. So suddenly your CRM is better than LinkedIn. It's better than any tool out there because you also have your own insight, whatever it might be, interview notes, vetting that you've done to it as well. But now you have constantly updated data. So if you suddenly think of that, you're unlocking a plethora, an infinite number of possibilities through email automation, through even retargeting, through reactivating campaigns to reach those candidates or clients. They come at a cost, these tools. But again, if you think of it as, and there needs to be an exercise. You can't just go cold turkey on shut off all your recruiters' LinkedIn accounts and shut off the job boards. There's a change management here. Otherwise, your recruiters, they're going to hate you. They're not going to understand. They need to be, brought on the journey. But that the potential here is just enormous, and it is so exciting. And I think once you have that, you see, marketing really coming into its own. The innovation of what our industry is becoming. And actually, this is a point I love right now. There's a reason, if I use an analogy, there's a reason somebody flies Emirates versus Ryanair. They might get you to the same place. There'll be factors and reasons why you purchase your ticket on one versus the other.
Yes.
And it's okay to have different experiences. For so long, our industry has only traded on our people, price, and speed. And if you can get those right, match, of course, too. You need to have the right match. But, this contingency rat race of just, okay, we get the job on, we got to be fast to win out from all these other agencies. We can now start moving to a place of actually tailoring our service offering at different price points, at service offerings or product offerings that can cater to an Emirates client if you want it to, or it can cater to a Ryanair client if you want it to. And it's okay. It's okay whichever one you want to be. We don't have to be all uniform. We could be strategic and go where we want to take our business. And as a marketer, that's really, really exciting, because it gives us, it's brand again here, but it gives us something to actually trade on, to actually be able to articulate as our value proposition, as our differentiators. And also it allows us to, again, going back to that ideal customer profile, to line up the two. What is our offering? Who is the ideal profile for that offering? And then what's the technology and the digital and all the strategy that can layer on top of that to get you where you want to go?
I love that summary in terms of just thinking about marketing is more than, LinkedIn, social. It's really thinking about, as you say, like the pricing, the product, the positioning of how you're, putting yourself out to market. So
I think that's the 5 keys. I learned that back in
yes.
2002, I think, and it still stands true today.
And as both for software vendors and recruitment agencies, it's so easy to not think about the whole system of marketing and just think, right, we're focused on the product. Let's hit that hard, and you're missing out on 80% of marketing. So I think you're well worth taking note. As we wrap up, a few other questions to finalize the episode here. So, in terms of your career and experience, is there a particular piece of advice or thing that you kind of take through with you into your business that's helped you be successful?
Well, for one, the name Thrive is no coincidence. So if we rewind a few years, I sat reading Arianna Huffington's book, Thrive. And at the time, I was doing everything but thriving. I do feel I was surviving. I had a great career. I had great experiences, and not to take away from that. But there was something more for me out there. And that book changed everything for me. And I think, it's a new year, a new time, and not to date this podcast, because you could be doing this anytime. I left my corporate job in August 2016. Yeah, that's right. August 2016. So you could do it at any time. But what do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve in life? And that could be in your job, that could be in your personal life, it could be in building a business. The opportunities right now are just, it could be a side hustle. That they are just so endless. And I'm really lucky that I've had some incredible mentors and incredible influences on my life that allowed me to thrive, pardon the pun, but it is very fitting at the end of the day. It's the reason we are aptly named as a business because of that.
It's not a book that I've read, so I will put it on my list, and I will also drop it in the show notes for listeners to pick up as well. I think it also resonates with me in terms of maybe it's an age thing, but I think it's also a sign of the times that people are thinking about purpose, meaningful work, and really, moving from that surviving to thriving, reality and mindset. So I think, really suits the times today. Are there any other books or other media that you would like to recommend to the audience?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm not a podcast listener or I don't subscribe to podcasts. I'm one that, if something shows up on my LinkedIn feed, I am a consumer of LinkedIn. I've recently tried to shut off my other channels, at least for personal reasons. I still need to obviously access them professionally. But really, there's just, this whole kind of content economy that we're in right now. There's some really fantastic insights that come out. And yes, you need to vet them. And yes, you can't, people get their news from Facebook. I don't do that. Don't get your news from Facebook. I'm still also very much a news junkie, actually. But at the end of the day, we're all just still learning on this planet, aren't we? Or we should be. So, finding out what others are saying, taking an active interest. I call it espresso content, thick, rich, and dense.
Right.
Get your espresso content and make sure that it, feeds your thinking.
Yeah, certainly it's something I've been very mindful of recently, and I've taken off all my social media apps off my phone, so it's less of a distraction. But also wanting to almost create my own feed of, whether it be LinkedIn or Substack or Medium, where I can actually choose who I want to hear from, as opposed to just random voices out there who may, maybe just throwing disinformation or misinformation, which just can be distracting. And I think, again, this goes back to marketing and agencies. It's about content consumption versus content creation. And I think, we're all kind of, many of us are easily distracted with consumption, but actually, creating content can also be a very powerful way to grow and put value out there.
Yeah, there's a statistic out there right now that only 1% of the LinkedIn community actually creates their own content. I think our recruitment industry probably bucks that trend quite significantly, but that still tells you that there's a lot of silent scrollers out there that are just scrolling and consuming. And the algorithms are getting really clever. People are whinging about, well, I'm not getting the same visibility as I used to. But is that actually the right metric to be measuring? Is your content, again, going back to this whole targeting piece, is your content reaching the right people who are potential buyers who may not be liking your content, but they're absorbing it, and maybe that future client or candidate.
Right. Yeah. So reaching 100 of the right people is way better than 1,000 of random people.
I mean, I love the dopamine hit as well. Don't get us wrong. And, you love seeing the numbers creep up. But until you can actually track that through to actually seeing meaningful return from it, and whatever return you're trying to achieve, a traditional influencer on Instagram pushing beauty products is a different kind of return than a B2B business. But I guess that's the challenge for business leaders and marketers alike.
Indeed. That is a perfect way for us to wrap up. Kristie, thank you so much for spending time with us today on the Staffing Ring. Where can people find you and learn more about you and your business?
Yes, well, my name is very unique. Kristie Perrotte, you will find me immediately. But if you want to come to our website, it's thrivermo.com, or you can reach me at Kristie@thrivermo.com as well.
Amazing. Thank you again, and see you all on the next episode.